Alright guys, welcome back. This is Val from Dreamlight, and in this tutorial we're going to be creating cool kind of portrait renders of Genesis 8.1 females. I'm going to be using a very special technique for making them look sexy in front of the camera, as well as lighting and post work and bringing it all together. So we're going to be starting with picking a character in our scene, and I'm going to pick, why not just pick Victoria 0.81. Now, you can use Genesis 8 HD model or models, which are really high resolution, great looking. But 8.1 is obviously very special. So when she's loaded, I'm gonna go here and locate her right here and just make sure I have the HD materials added. So I'm going to select her in the scene, go here and click on HD materials. I'm going to choose makeup. And the kind of lighting we're going to be using requires very harsh makeup. So you don't want to do subtle makeup with those types of lights. You want to have an aggressive looking makeup, right? So I'll pick one of these where it's more, I think I want to select either this one, which is heavy on eyes. Just see, no browns with browns. And this one here has both strong mouth and eyes. I'm gonna pick, I think, this one here. Yeah, this one over here. That's pretty cool. All right, so this one here. Awesome. We also choose green eyes, just to make it a little bit more special. Now, right inside this folder here, Anatomy and Genesis 8.1 female vellus here, we also gonna add that kind of body hair and facial hair all over, you know, including the face, right? And you can see them here kind of being previewed roughly here, right? And there's also materials for them, which we can do either default or more natural. I'm gonna go with natural. All right, so one more thing. Here at the bottom, we're also gonna select Victoria 8.1 eyebrows. So I'm just gonna make sure she's selected. I'm gonna click there. And by the way, we can grab, there are some materials here, but there's also, you know, black looks pretty cool, very dramatic. There are also makeup options for this character with the brows on. Let me just double check here, so that really is on. Here, it says no brows here, right? And this one has brows on. Let's click there to get them included. Cool. All right, that's that. So I'm gonna now add hair to my character, and hair is very important when you're doing close-ups. You want to have hair that is really good quality, that looks thick, but also that doesn't, you know, kind of show individual strands, because some hair props, they almost look like they are bending the hair here and there, and it looks kind of awkward, right? I'm gonna load this one from OOT, out of touch, and let me just see if my character is selected. I'm gonna click there. Cool. And what I want to do is see what kind of hair color we want to go for. Now, here's the thing. When doing portrait renders, there is a specific thing I'm going to be doing with the camera and also with the face and poses and all that. First, I'm just going to do a more vertically oriented preset or framing. I'm going to create a camera. There we go, camera. And obviously I'm gonna add some clothing, but we really don't need that much because we're gonna be kind of close to our character. But here's the thing, to make a female character look really hot in a render, you don't want to be far away with the camera and zoom in. That changes the proportions and makes the head almost like square. You can see that? It makes it more masculine. You don't want to do that. You want to be close and use a kind of wide angle, but not too much, because if you use that, you're going to exaggerate. As you can see, it becomes more and more female in doing so, but at a certain level it becomes just exaggerated. You want to have something in between, a little bit of zoom. If you take a look here at the zoom level, it's around 17 right now, which is very low. You want to have a little bit more than that, around 40 or 50. I'd say 40 is pretty good here, because then you get that kind of feel where the things are a little bit exaggerated, you know, like a wide angle lens. It exaggerates distances and makes things look a little bit different. And somewhere around 40-50 is a great, you know, trade-off between those two. That makes a female face more attractive, so to speak. Another thing you want to do is not be too high with the camera. That makes her look kind of odd and less sexy, right? If you want to make someone look sexy, you want to have the camera slightly lower. It's like chin up, right? That makes them look a little bit more dominant. So that's a few things about the camera. I'm going to go back to the camera in a moment because we're going to set a few other elements as well, which we don't have just yet. So what I'm going to do is pick a dress for her. And let's just see how she looks like as of now, because we're going to pick a hair color before doing that. And let's just use this default thing here that loads. It gives very soft lighting, which is cool for now. We're going to be changing this in a moment. Golden or blonde hair is pretty cool, but it's not as dramatic as dark hair. Darker hair is very, very dramatic. I'm going to be using a cool color as well as backdrop. Probably some cyberpunk style color or something like that, but more on that later. But the thing is, I'm going to start off with a very cool darker hair prop. So I'm going to go to the material presets, select the hair prop here in my scene, and go for a little bit, you know, dark color. Let's see what we find a good trade-off. As you can see, she becomes more dominant now, right? It's like she immediately changes her appearance and looks more, it's like we are focusing more on the face. When you tone down the hair like we're doing right now, you're focusing more on the face, and this makes the model appear more, rather than when you have blonde hair, then attention kind of gets scattered away from the face onto the hair, right? It's a different type of sexy, but it's not really putting attention on the middle of the image. So let's do that. Let's do a little bit darker, and you know, we can tweak this later. What I also want to do is avoid having the face straight towards the camera. This makes it look very, very boring. And I also want to turn the shoulders. I want to turn the shoulders slightly away from the center. Also, I'm going to turn away the face slightly away from the camera, and then I'm going to find the camera with the eyes. So we're doing a few things, right? We're having a low camera to make her more dominant, more sexy. We are turning her away from the camera, and we're going to turn the face away from the camera as well, and then we're going to find the camera with the eyes. Let's see if we can turn on the denoiser. If you have RTX cards, this is a must. It's just incredible. I'm just having here on the laptop a RTX 260 graphic card. me just see where it's not showing. There we go, hardware. RTX 260. So it's by no means a super graphic card. I have on my other system a dual RTX 280 Ti that are a lot faster. I believe they are 3-4 times faster than the single one here. But I have some issues with that PC. It crashes randomly, so I'm avoiding it as much as I can and only using it when I need to. So that is that. Now what I'm gonna do now is add some kind of clothing. We're not done with lighting up. I just want to increase everything so we see more of her. And what I want to do is find a clothing that removes attention from the chest. Right now a lot of attention goes down to her chest, right? I want to pull up the attention towards her face. So that's why we're gonna put clothing on that accents her face. Let's see what we got. We got a lot of these angel bodies, secret angel secrets 2. How does the body look like? I don't think we're gonna see much of it, but I can just click on it and see. Let's click on it. That doesn't work out, right? It still pulls attention towards the bottom part of the image. So I can remove that. Let's try something else. Switch to these are possibly this one, Lexi. Let's click on it. No, I'd like something more that covers her bottom more. So kind of like a high, maybe this one. Let's see, Lila. Well, that is in the right direction. It removes these shoulders. We're gonna change the color of this, but it's still a lot of attention down here. So let's remove that. Go back and pick something else. We've got hot dress, hot sweater. This one goes all the way up. This might be something. Hot sweater. Let's see how that works. Okay, this one goes all the way up here. Looks a little bit too much. Let's remove that. All right. This one here doesn't display anything. This one here might do the trick. It has a pattern. This might be something we can use. Let's keep that in mind. It's in the right direction. Cocoa dress. Let's go back. Cold-hearted. He has a choker. All right. How does a choker work here? Let's see. That adds attention to the bottom. Maybe in a different color. Let's see if we can do kind of. I would love for that to be better selected. Might be something we can use. Maybe. We can remove it if that doesn't work out later on. So this one here now, the blouse. Yep, pulls away attention from the shoulders. And what we can do, obviously, we can also lower this quite a bit, like that, which would accent or remove the bottom of the face with the right material. Sorry, remove the lower body with the different color. If we go for, let's see, black, that now removes attention from the bottom here and pulls it upwards. So that's something that's possible to do, right? Let's go a little bit closer. All right, so we have that working in our favor right now. We have the bottom kind of stripped away a little bit, and it pulls us up towards here. We can still put more here, like a necklace or something, later on. So now what I want to do is turn the face slightly. So we're gonna do head, okay, and rotate that. Let's undo the preview so it goes a little bit faster. Alright, so let's see how that works. So basically we want her to lean towards the camera, but also turn the head away slightly, right? So you're doing a dual thing. She's looking away, but then she's pulling into the camera, and also slightly bending it downwards because it's a very low camera angle here. And you want to also repeat this slightly with a neck upper and neck lower, so it doesn't just bend the head. That wouldn't be natural, right? So just cool. And then we're gonna find our eyes. So I'm gonna create a null object and call it eye target. And I'm gonna put that in the top view here, wireframe. I'm gonna put that eye target somewhere behind the camera, a little bit higher up. Let me just see what that is here. And we're gonna then make the eyes look at the target. So I click on the eye and point at eye target. Do the same thing on the other one. Right eye and left eye here. Look at, point at eye target. Cool. So now what we can do is pull that target away from the character. Let me go to universal. So now we can use this to reposition the eyes, all right? And you want to have eye contact. Let's see where we are from the left side here. Sometimes when you rotate the head, it becomes a bit too much, and right now we get a very kind of awkward, angle because the head is rotated a little bit too much. So let's pull that back a little bit on the head. Let's go to head. I'll just rotate it here, slightly less on the twist. There we go. So it's away, but it's still facing us. Now we can find a more natural angle here. I'm gonna fine tune that in a sec. Now the second thing I'm gonna do now is open her mouth just a little bit. So we don't want to, you know, smile or put a smile on. I'm gonna have this kind of slightly open bed look lips, right? Bedroom look, so to speak. So I'm gonna go for lips, and first I'd like to, let's see if I can just pull this heart shape on a little bit, and it says contour HD. But what I want to do here is find good angles. Seductive kissy lips. This is something I have installed since before. This looks pretty good though. All right. So we got open. We can just go for mouth, and here we can go with. There's a lot of option here, right? So mouth close. We got. All right. We can go for smile. And bring. So you don't want that super, you know, you want that sexy smile. That doesn't do much. I'm not sure why it doesn't change anything. Smile simple. You can smile a little bit like that, but very, very subtle. It's almost not noticeable. All right. And that's it. So what we can do is do a little bit of mouth pucker and a little bit of, let's see here, we got mouth upper up. Very, very subtle. I just want to kind of feel it's slightly open, not too much. If you overdo this, it's not going to work. It needs to be very, very subtle, okay? All right, let me save that. So we're starting to approach. Let me switch now to the video preview. We're going to be adding the light soon in a moment. Cool. This is exactly the look I wanted. Now this particular hair has a lot of hair going like that in front of the face, and I like that. It kind of looks a little bit messy, right? And messy hair, well, you know what that suggests, right? And that's partially why I chose this. I just love this look. This also hides, like in this case, the eyes slightly, and it just makes it more like almost, you know, well, what's hidden kind of becomes more interesting. It's not that it's completely hidden, but it's slightly hidden, right? And by the way, there are hair options. If you go to, for instance, the hair prop here, let's see if I can locate it. This one here, right? There are obviously options on it. You can go back and look for it here. There are movement presets and also alignment presets where they fall. And another element you can do is to show off the shoulder towards camera as more nude, but not the other one. So for instance, you can click on this preset, which would remove the hair from this shoulder and make it more open, so to speak. And that is only possible if you don't have a super cleavage like we have here, which in this case pulls a lot of attention, right? So this would work if we have a different framing, like for instance something like that. We don't expose so much of the chest, right? And maybe slightly less cleavage. Being it open is more sexy. Undo that because I'm not going to use it. But that's something you can try. And also you can try hair, messy hair that's just flowing all over the place. This is also something you can try. I just think that the default one is really good, so I'm gonna just stick with that because it looks messy and wavy enough, and in this case it also hides a little bit of this area here. I'm gonna also put a necklace here if I can to try and remove some of the attention the chest gets here. We might maybe change that using different camera framing as well later. So another thing we can do is to, on the camera setting, just locate my character. Kind of lost her. Let's click on our character here and click on the framing icon. There she is. So what I'd like to do here is use camera depth of field to further control where attention goes, right? So I'm going to click on camera, remove mouth, turn it on, and set it right where the eyes are. Depth of field should always be on the eyes of the character. And you can use left and top view on that. You can also use, like I'm using right now, perspective view, which is pretty good because it shows exactly where that goes. And if you have dual or two eyes, put it right in the between, so both of them become sharp. That pulls away attention from the chest slightly because it now becomes blurry. So the attention goes up to the face. All right. And just double check if this makes sense. Yeah, it's pretty okay. All right. We can then further control just how much blurry it is. A lower number will exaggerate this. Maybe too much, right? And we can maybe fine tune exactly where that goes. Let's see. I think it's pretty good, but it's way too dominant. I'm going to try maybe 30. So it keeps the eyes sharp. Alright, now let's start playing with the lights. And so what I'm going to do is lift the camera up a bit. And start playing with the lights. So lighting wise, I'm gonna use a very fashion style lighting for this. It's not gonna be 50 lights. It's gonna be more or less just one, possibly two, but I want them to do a very specific thing. So we're gonna use a spotlight and also this kind of sunlight or dome light. We can use it as an additional light source without the sun. Set it to a summer-ish thing at noon. And I'm going to turn off the sun component, so it's only that vague, very soft kind of overall lighting, right? What you can do with it is, at noon you have the sky at its peak, so to speak, at the top, right? As you lower this, it becomes more like intensified lower, because that's where the sunset would go, right? But also changes color. So I'm gonna keep it at noon, but rotate the entire dome here. You can see that changes how she's affected by the light. All right. And eventually you kind of end up, see, almost like having the light from the front. And it becomes very, very soft, almost impossible to tell there are any shadows. And you want that softness in that overall light, but you don't want as much of it. So what I'm going to do is tone it down quite a bit to just maybe 0.3 or 0.2. I'm going to check that later, just so you have, well, something else than pitch dark, right? Cool. All right. Let's save the scene. All right, next I'm gonna throw in adjustments on the spotlight. The spotlight is gonna do a specific job. It's gonna be here, very close to my character, and there is a reason for that. I want it to also be straight towards her face, right where the camera is. Slightly to the right, but not much, because I want a little bit of darkness towards the camera, but very, very subtle. I'm going to place that very high up, aiming it straight at her nose. And the reason I have this light so close is that I want to cast a shadow. I also want to tone it quickly. I don't want it to follow along her body and illuminate her chest as intensely. I want that to be darker. Alright? So having a light close to an object makes it quickly decay in intensity. You can feel. So that's what we're using right now. And vice versa is true as well. If you have a light further away from your model, then the relative distance towards the light and towards towards the light from different multiple points in a character is almost the same, right? But when the light is close, then it's much closer to the face than it is to the chest. That's where the chest becomes darker. So I'm going to use a rectangular shape, super soft. Let's use 100 or 200. And how much, we might tone it down to 100 or even 50, just depends on how the shadows look like, right? We want to have some kind of shadow here on her neck, but not too much. Also, I want to adjust spread angle so it doesn't go all over the place. Here's the thing, if the spread angle is very narrow, like it is right now, and you start to playing with a larger scale on the height and width here, eventually the light starts to disobey the spread angle. Okay, so the softer or larger it is, the more it starts to disobey the spread angle. It starts to illuminate anyway because it's so huge, right? Let's try 25. Just focus on her face, even 20, and adjust intensity. See what we come up with here. That's way too much. Let's go down to maybe half. Yeah, still a little bit too much. Let me do like this. Let me go a little bit closer and a little bit more down, a little bit more towards the camera. This lighting should be frankly almost behind the camera because you want the shadow to go almost straight down. So in this case, it's a little bit to the left, but still, you will get this darkening effect by having the light slightly to the right of your model. Just see how much we need of that. Let's see where we end up here. It's almost where I want it. Let's go a little bit higher up. And up here. That becomes more steep, creates a longer shadow on the neck. Alright, let's go more from the front. Almost aligned with the camera now. Alright, so we're almost there. A little bit more from the side here, which is really from the front because this is where the camera is aiming at. Cool. We're casting a shadow now on the neck. And let's get closer to our model. What this closeness does, it makes the light here quickly fade away at the bottom. And right now it's very difficult to see what's going on here. I'm going to tone down the overall lighting. I want it to be a little bit darker. Cool, and this would need to render for a while to really see where we are. I'm also going to tone this later on inside Photoshop. And I'd like this to be a little bit more from this side again, which is the front behind the camera. This darkens the neck. And right now it's very difficult to see what's going on because this needs to render for a while to project the quality we need. Let's say we can go a little bit wider. It looks a little bit weird. Cool. All right. So what I'm going to do is just make a render out of this, just so we can see where we are, because this looks very, very fuzzy. Also enhance the eyes and so forth, and you know, continue and remove attention from the bottom here, from this area down here. There is a way of doing that by placing a blocker on the light, so that's what we're going to do in a second. This particular light comes a little bit too steep on the eyes, creates very dark shadows here underneath, which in fashion is kind of okay, but I want to just pull it back just to avoid having that super intense shadow. Alright, so I'm gonna again render this and then come back because I need to see where we are. So I'm gonna save this. Just set my rendering options here. Filtering on, we got progressive. Let's just use 1, and 5000 is enough. Let's just render and see what we end up with. I'm going to let this render for a couple of minutes just to get a little bit more data so I can see what's going on, how it looks, and then I'm going to come back and tweak this. Alright, so I'll see you in a sec. So after 2 minutes, I see that we are not where I wanted to be. There is shadows from the hair strand here, and I want the eyes to catch the lighting a little bit more, and also I want the lighting to be more from the right side like I originally intended. This is all a little bit difficult and fuzzy to see in the preview, and so that's what we need to make a render. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pull it back, pull it to the right side, and switch over here like so. So you get a nice clean view on the face. There we go. Alright, and I want to obviously pull away attention from the chest area. So in order for that to happen, I can also pull it back very slightly here to get even a little more light on the eyes. Yep, cool. I'm going to remove the choker. It collides with the shadow and creates an awkward effect I dislike. I'll tone down this environmental even more. Let's go for choker removal, which is, let me see if I can locate it. Here. Go. Now I'm going to put a blocker on the light. And there are many ways of creating blockers. One of the simplest is to just create a plane. I'm gonna turn off that rendering, go to parent to the spotlight, reset its position and rotation, and now in this view I'm gonna pull it away from the camera. Let's see where we are. Scale. It's not really showing me exactly how it looks like. There we go, that's better. And we need to angle it. Something like that, 90 degrees towards the light. Pull it away from the light. All right. And now in the light view, I can move it down to control, oops, that was the wrong thing. Here, move it down to control where it goes and not. All right. And by doing so, I'm removing the light virtually from the model. And what's important here is that this blocker is black and not reflective. You don't want it to kind of catch light and bounce off and attack the model yet again, right? You would want it to be completely dark. No glossiness, no reflections. And let's turn that to 0. And now, as you can see, it blocks the light, but blocks a lot of it. So what I want to do is make it block less by making it semi-transparent. So now you're effectively pulling away attention from the chest. I'm going to move it slightly down because I don't like how high it goes up here, and also make it less, maybe 0. Sorry, more intense. More 7. Yeah, that would be pretty good, right? Maybe 75. Okay. And also move it slightly more down. So that would be this one. And this view here is almost out of the chest, but it still blocks it effectively because the light is kind of large, right? It's a large light source. Now I dislike the large cleavage she has, so we need to still find a good, the face looks great now, lighting in the eyes looks great, very fashion style-ish. What I would love to do here is maybe have slightly sharper shadows. So I'm going to select that. Let's go for spotlight and make it a little bit less in size, maybe even 70. That's going to make the light more sharp and also more intense. Let's lower the intensity. It becomes more intense because when you decrease the size, you are still funneling all that power into a smaller area, right? So I want to have a necklace here. We need a huge necklace to remove that attention. Or we can just, you know, zoom in with the camera and have a totally different approach. We can try that as well. Let's see if we can find a good angle here. I like the one we had. It just feels better with all that stuff happening here. Possibly we could maybe move it slightly closer and zoom in so we don't have full as much, but we are kind of losing hair by zooming in like that, like this. We are losing hair, and now this becomes a huge component, stealing a lot of attention, right? So what I want to do now is find a way to minimize the neck. I think that was pretty good. Let's zoom out a little bit. Yep. Alright. So we want less of the neck to be visible. And we'll also double check camera depth of field. Let's see where we are. Let's see where the camera is. It's over here. Camera depth of field. Still goes through the eyes, but more on one of the eyes. Let's go for a little bit more between the eyes, like that. Cool. Alright, let me save. Now let's find that necklace, shall we? Alright. So we got, click on our character. Let's go back. And I'm gonna go and find Genesis 8 clothing. And see what we got. Some dresses can have additional jewelry, like this one has a ring and bracelet and some kind of earrings. We don't need them right now, but some of them have that, right? Let's see. V-lace, whip lace. Okay. No, 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 no. I think I might need to buy some jewelry. I don't think I have a lot of that purchased. It's not something I use a lot on the renders I make. I don't seem. Let's see if Mystique has something. Okay, cool. This is a corset choker. This is awesome. Chokers are great because they minimize attention. They, you know, make the area appear darker, and that, as you can see, pulls attention away from her neck. However, in doing so, we kind of remove, I'd say, a lot of her neck, and I'd like to keep a little bit of that. But let's see. It's a corset choker. Can we maybe remove the upper part of it? Let's see what kind of components it has. It has a trim. You can always go to opacity and see if you can remove one element. Okay, the trim needs to obviously be there. Small pendant ring. Okay. Pendant ball. Pendant. Mesh. What's the mesh? Okay, that's that part. Okay. Large metal ring, laces. No, not there. Lace rings, back flap. Sounds like the back side. Back area. Okay, this one doesn't work because it's too intense. It's too much of it. It kind of, you know, removes her neck completely. It's a great, you know, lovely lace, but it's just too much. So let's pick something else. Cool. We got here a lighting arch necklace. Okay, let's try that. That is a great height. I like it. It shifts attention from her neck to her face. We can also tweak it, make it more black. I like it. And if we can at the same time pull off some kind of sweater adjustment so that it, you know, shows less cleavage, we could maybe possibly darken more with the plain here. Let's do that. Let's go here. So see, I'm working a lot with details, and you know, doing great renders is all about details. It's all about shifting small details and making sure you know what you're doing, what you're covering, what you're revealing. It's not just about, you know, putting some clothes on and everything was good, right? You need to know what kind of components that need to be toned or shifted away or switched. That looks better, right? We have almost remove attention. I would say 0.8, and on top of that, put some kind of limitation on that. What's the dress? I think this is good because we can, you know, dim it more inside Photoshop. So let's see. Can we use on this necklace some kind of adjustment to make it less, well, not shiny maybe, but this metallic thing? If I remove that, what happens? Okay. What happens if we make it dark black? Ooh, this is cool. I like that. Maybe too much, right? Okay, yeah. That looks a lot better. Maybe some metallicity. I even go too far as say to use the roughness texture here. On here. Here. I will just add a little structure to the metallic appearance. Yeah, so that's better. It's still there, it's still cool, but it's darker and doesn't shine as much. And we have here done a lot to pull attention towards the face. Depth of field does that, the lighting does that, the necklace hides her neck, the extra added blocker does that, the whole kind of structure of the camera being low and aiming towards the face does that. All the hair pulls us towards the top, so there's a lot of components working together here. So now I'd like to just adjust the eyes, and then we're gonna pull the render, because there is not much more we need to do here. We can make this render more dramatic by toning down the environmental intensity to 0 or just turning it off, but that's a little bit going too far, okay? And on the other end, if you go to 1, it's going to be way too much, and all the mystery and illusion is gone, right? So I kind of like it the way it was at 0.1, possibly 0.2. Let's see how that looks like. Maybe I kind of like it darker. I mean, gotta have contrast, right? And that is my trademark. I like contrast. I like, when colors clash. All right, so let's pull the eyes down. So I'm gonna locate here the eye. Let's see where it is. Call you located now. The eye target, right? Let's pull it down a little bit to maybe 0. Cool, and I think we need to, it doesn't feel like the eyes are watching at us. I'd like to pull it down a little bit more. That might be a little bit too intense, but I just want to see. Thing is, I might have just a change of heart here. Why not just ignore facing the camera and just look straight up instead? These eyes are beautiful, and by gazing down we are kind of hiding them slightly. She's looking away, and that is pretty cool. I kind of like it. It's very intense. Let's keep it at that, and even maybe make her look to the right instead, on purpose. Alright, so I'm going to move that eye target to the right. See what happens if I do that. That is too much. It pulls away the attention. Let's keep it here. Okay, good enough. So I'm gonna save my scene. Alrighty, and I'm gonna go and do the render. So for the final render, I'm gonna do a little bit more quality. I'm gonna turn off the quality. The thing is, if you have it on, it goes by the number here, and 1 is pretty low. If you turn it off, it kind of becomes automatic. It takes longer to render, but often turns out really, really good. So I'm gonna let this render. Then I'm going to jump into Photoshop and show you a few things you can do, should not do, and must do inside, the second half of the process, so to speak. So I'm going to just let this render, and I'll see you in Photoshop in a second. I'm just engage the render. See if everything turns out cool here. Yep, alright. Alright, so I got the render done. I'm going to show that in a second. But just before we go into Photoshop, I want to do one more render pass. And without moving the camera, I'm going to turn on a white backdrop, use scene only lighting, and remove all lights so it's black. And I'll make a quicker render. This is going to render a mask so that we can change the color of the background individually, or vice versa. By the way, when you render masks, you don't want to have any, just turn off any denoiser. It doesn't work with masks, and you don't want to have any bloom if you got it, and you don't want to have any emissive surfaces if you got that as well. So that should now be pitch dark, hopefully. Let's just see. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna let this render for a few seconds, or just get a little bit more data. And just pause real quick. So when you render masks, you don't want to move the camera. You don't want to turn off depth of field. Depth of field, the blurriness you see here, needs to be there for masks to work properly. And I'm gonna let this render so I get rid of the noise we see here. This is just to change the background intensity or color, which we can do in post work. So pause real quick. And by the way, some advice on rendering masks: you don't want to use the quality enable function on, because if you do and select 1, 2, 3, 10, or even 50 or 100, it's not going to be sufficient. And when you have it off, it enables Array to render at full quality that is required for the particular render. In this case, it will, calculate what's needed here. If you have quality enabled on and choose 1, it's going to render really quickly, but look very, very blurry or noisy. All right, that's good enough. I'm gonna cancel and save. And I'm saving as BMP for maximum quality. Now let me go to Photoshop. And by the way, just because I'm using Photoshop doesn't mean you have to. You can actually use any 2D software that has layers. So that's how we find a render. Pretty good quality. Maybe the facial hair is a little bit too much here at this steep angle, but if you've been photographing women with heavy lighting that we have here, then you know that hair is visible, right? But maybe it's a tad too much. This upper part looks a little bit better, this lower part looks maybe not so much. So we're gonna try to minimize this in a second. All right, you can darken it, possibly blur it. There's multiple ways of dealing with that. And here's our mask. So I'm just going to zoom out real quick so we can squeeze this into the view. So one of the first things you want to do is to head into Camera. And Camera has really cool filters that enable you to deal with a few things. Just zoom in so we can see what's going on here. Let's do 100%. Something like that. One of the things that you want to be adjusting is the texture, and especially if you have male renders, a lot of texture is great at revealing pores and details and all that, and you want some of that, but not too much. This is not a horror show. You don't want to show too much, but obviously that makes the image a little bit more clear and shows more details. This is just good, right? Something you want to avoid is clarity. Clarity adds that kind of cool effect, which is mainly, I would use this for outdoor scenes or male renders, just a little bit of that, but here in this case it just adds too much. I want to strongly suggest you don't use that. Vibrance is a cool way of throwing in extra color that doesn't bleed as much as saturation does. Saturation is more, it bleeds more. This adds more like punch to the color. I would not go there at all because we want to maintain a good skin color, in our render. Sometimes when you play with lighting, you get strong highlights. You can adjust them here in the highlight section, but that also in this case tones down the entire image, so I'm not going to do that. Instead, you can throw the render slightly into the overpowered state, which you can do either by adjusting highlights or exposure. That, although adjusts the entire image, but it's not a bad thing, right? You can punch it slightly and then pair with highlights if needed. It makes the render more punchy and more kind of fashion style. Not too much. All right, shadows we don't need to play with. I like them dark. Whites and blacks, all that we can keep. Sometimes an image can look really cool in black and white. You can check it out. And this one looks really great in black and white, but I'm just gonna keep it in color because I like the colors of this one. And usually I also, tone down the edges using vignetting. But before applying vignetting, I wanna just, click on OK. And also, before frankly applying so much of everything, I want to also try, I can undo all this we did here and just use my own filter, which is sold at the Dash store, called Magic Filter. It requires the background to be a single layer and locked and called background. And that makes the entire render more photoreal, and also sometimes it punches it, throws it a little bit overboard, which you can easily adjust here using the opacity slider. So I would in this case just add a little bit of that because it's a fashion style render and just works great with that, right? Now that we have that included, now we can head into camera and to redo the changes we did here earlier. So real quick exposure, adjustment, a little bit of highlight, and this maybe can be turned down to 0.2, and then we have a little bit of texture, right? Cool, and that's it. And then sometimes going into the blue tone can be really beneficial for portraits, fashion style. Warmer doesn't do them good, but blue tone kind of makes them a bit more edgy, almost like they're silver-ish in tint. And then effects and tone down the edges of the render. Now this is now our render completed, but I'm gonna change the background and also fix the hair here and also tone down the bottom of it. So one way of toning down the images besides doing the gradient is obviously to use a new layer and throw in black and white and use gradient, of course, and then just throw in a shift at the bottom that fades like this, and then use multiply and then just scale it down. So just further tone away that bottom part of the image. So we are really focusing on the face. We don't want to have anything at the bottom here. Sometimes the gradient doesn't apply a dark black effect. It just darkens the colors. So you can, on top of that, throw in an additional layer that looks something like this. Fill that with black using the paint bucket tool. Deselect, add a little bit of blurriness to it using Gaussian blur, let's say 50 or 100, I think 170 looks pretty good here, and then tone it down a bit. And in this case, maybe you wouldn't even add them, it just feels a little bit awkward having them in there. Yeah, I think we are pretty good the way we are. Now, so what I'm going to do now is just test how the mask can be used to alter the color or change the background for that matter. I like the color, it's very edgy and cool, so I'm not going to, possibly do a lot with it. But what I can do now is just simply head here, make a duplicate, add the mask, Ctrl A, Ctrl C, use Command on the Mac, go here, create the mask on this layer, Alt click on it to select it, Ctrl V to paste, and then go back here. Now we have the background being totally separate here by this mask, and we can now select the full layer here, not the mask, but the full layer here, and change this color. For instance, using curves, we can adjust the red down, and shift the colors. Now depending on how well you render the mask, it will not include so much see-through effects. This is a drawback of masks. They sometimes don't provide 100%, you know, well, solution to your problems, right? But nevertheless, you can, you know, adjust it slightly, right? And subtle shift is not destroying the mood. Plus, you can also use, for instance, brightness and contrast and darken it. All right, or brighten it. So there's multiple ways you can, you know, play with this. Let's see how a brightening effect here might change the mood. I think I go for a little brighter. And contrast, let's see what happens with that. Yeah, I kind of like it lower. It looks cool. And the hair behind there kind of feels like it's blocked by the light. It kind of feels cool. I like it a little bit brighter. I think that makes the render a little bit less dramatic. I'd say I can maybe adjust this down to half of its effect. Yep, all right, perfect. So next, we're gonna fix the vellus here, right? It turned out a little bit too much. So like I said, a simple thing you can do, let me just flatten the image, is to select it all here. Okay. Copy that, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and use Command on the Mac. And Gaussian blur it, 0.1, 0.2, 3, 4, and so forth. That blurs it and makes it less dramatic, and that can often be enough. If that is still too much, there are other things you can do. And undo the blurriness. One of the things you can try here is to do a denoise feature, reduce noise. And I would just go for, let's say, maximum, preserve details, none, reduce color noise. Let's go for sharpen details, no, and click on OK. That's another thing you can do to further remove that. And you know, some facial hair is required. It's something that you want to have in your render, right? And that looks pretty okay. I would leave that because they are facial hair on girls. It's just the fact, and it just makes her look more realistic. And if you think this is a little bit too much, like, you know, throwing in that soft, you can tone this down a little bit if you want, just to see through some of the hair there. Cool. All right, so that is it, my friend. Now, as an extra bonus here, I'm gonna do another video and just do a third-party tool to further enhance this, and so I'll see you there.